Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Black Advancement. I'm Ajiman Jasante Goodman, the moderator for today's show. With me, I have Antoine Smallwood. I have Shanice Goodman. I have Timba Bryant. And I have Greg Goodman. And like I said before, we are a part of Black Advancement Incorporated. Before I get into today's topic, I'll introduce the organization itself. Black Advancement Incorporated is a nonprofit organization that seeks to combat problems within the Black community through action and dialogue. Before we get into the topic today, I'm going to hit you with a front street. Our topic today is parenting. This is actually a revisit from one that we did way back when we first started off. So I'll read that front street. I'll just keep it the same, but some of the questions may have expanded a little bit. There are a lot of problems within the Black community, all of which may stem from this one category. Parenting is one of the most difficult and consuming endeavors that exist in the typical human experience. There's no single way, I should say, to raise a child. And like the African proverb states, it takes a village to raise a child. However, nowadays, it is less and less common to see that proverb in action. Based on the increasing numbers of outside influences, children seem to be less and less interested in doing what their parents say and more so focused on whatever makes them feel good. Additionally, they have become more selfish because we as adults have also become more selfish with our time and our patience with our children. Without proper guidance, we may be leaving the future generation to make critical decisions before their time. But with all that being said, it begs the question of how much is parenting to blame for the destruction of the Black community? Mm. So I'll start off with the first question. And I'll start with, I'm gonna go with the vets first. I'll start with Greg first. Are single parent homes the new normal in the Black community? And if so, is that a problem?
I would say it's a new norm for the Black community. That seems to be the new norm for basically America. If you look at the statistics, it's about even across the boards. Now, if you're going to check on single parent homes as in couples that are married, yeah, if you're looking at married couples, I think Blacks are a little bit less, but overall, it's about even. If you're looking at fathers' involvement in those single parent homes, statistically, Blacks are more involved than most other groups. In fact, all other groups, if you look at it that way. So if it is a new norm, it's not just a new norm for us, it's a new norm for the country as a whole.
Okay. Antoine.
Indeed, I think I agree with everything Greg said there. It's a new norm for the country as a whole. I don't think it's just with the Black community there. I do think that it's something that parenting is a two-person thing and should be that, but I think there are a number of reasons why it's become popular for it to be one person kind of doing all of the parenting. And it's just something that's more of a current generation versus anything historical with Black people as a whole.
Okay, Shanice.
I agree with both of you. Being an educator, I do get to see there's a lot more single parents, and it is across the board, no matter what race you are. Also, stereotypically, when you think of single parent homes, you often think of Black women leaving the home. So that is something that a lot of people have a misconception on, that single parent homes are only within our communities, only ran by Black females. Where there are Black fathers leading home, there are Black mothers, there's Asian mothers, and fathers. So I think statistically wise, it's growing among across the United States, and it's not just in Black homes. So that's what I think.
Timba.
I think I would piggyback off the rest of you guys and agree that, it's across the board racially. Black mothers are often portrayed as the only single parent households because our men are deadbeats or they are in jail or something of that nature. And that's what, we get from the news and, just the general misconception of the country. But I think also a lot of single parents these days, and just from my own not personal experience, but personal experience as far as like my friends and things are concerned. A lot of people are single parents by choice. Um, there's people are, doing a lot of career oriented things first in life now, as opposed to back in the day when you got married young and you had kids and then, you were either working or the wife was staying at home or something of that nature. But a lot of women are about their careers these days, and they're not necessarily, even if they're single or not married, they get to a certain point where they feel like, maybe the clock is ticking and they want to have a baby. But even if there's no person in their life or, something like that, they're still pursuing that option of having children without a partner. So.
That kind of reminds me of this. I guess it's a TikTok thing or whatever, where this black dude had given some conference like way back in like the early, I guess, 90s, where he was talking about basically the nuclear family shifts depending on what's going on economically, where he's like, it made more sense for parents to stay together when you were doing stuff agriculturally and during the industrial ages. And then like it made more sense for it to be just a nuclear family, like you, your mom, and just your siblings, when it was like the kind of right before the tech boom. And then when the tech boom happened, people are like, oh, I can do this myself. Do you guys think there's any legitimacy to something like that, as far as like the economics driving what kind of family that people see is deemed to be acceptable and normal?
I'll jump in. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Antoine.
Oh, I'll be brief. I don't think it's necessarily solely economically. I think it's relationship wise. I think that you have it now where a lot of women don't want to have to attach themselves to a man to have children, which is kind of a revolution of the sorts. Whereas before, generations of women got married, stayed at home to have a family, raised a family, and et cetera, right? They're exploring new avenues for themselves. Concretely, you also see a lot of men now being like, you know what? Maybe they don't want to be married, so maybe they'll adopt a kid or what have you. And so people are kind of exploring what it means to be able to have their freedom as a person from a relationship or being married, as opposed to having to be married and build with a person, and also on top of that add children, where they may feel like, you know what, I know what I want. I don't want to have to combine my ideals with somebody else's to actually build anymore. So they can just kind of do whatever they want to do and build whatever their vision of a family is. So I think that's kind of a lot of what I see, and probably believe the last 8 to 10 years, as opposed to what you see in years prior, where people usually got married or they were together or whatever their version of marriage is. They might just be long-term partners or what have you, but they were building that throwback nuclear family together. Now you see a lot more folks who are, they're a single parent and they love it. So yeah.
Questions?
Yeah, if you were going to go by,
hey,
oh, my bad.
I won't be
I
long.
was throwing the alley-oop
My bad.
What happened there? I mean, what?
I had a thought and I was going to get it off, but let me marinate on it. Go ahead, Shanice.
Okay.
All right,
Go
yeah,
ahead,
I'll be short as well. And I was just gonna say, I do agree with the statistics, because right now, when you had that nuclear family, it's because we needed each other to survive, like monetarily. We needed. Now people are making their own money and they're making their own choices, so they don't necessarily need someone to help support them financially. So I think that's not. Stop with the faces.
Oh, I'm sorry. It sounds personal.
So yes, I think that's where you can see where he's coming up with that point where he's like, well, you really don't need each other financially anymore, because you can build independence on your own. And if you want your family to look a certain way, you can have it look a certain way, because you're able to support your family. Whereas in the past, if the man is only working and the woman's staying home, that's her support system. And so whereas now women are, they're doing a lot, especially Black women. Like we're climbing the ladders, we're doing a lot on our own. And then they also insert their independence and child rearing, when they don't have to deal with a man. They can just have a kid on their own and support them.
Looks and cookbooks. Timber, what do you say about it? I'm just playing. No.
Not looks and cookbooks.
No. I like it. Let me like Grant.
Okay, go ahead.
You got to go ahead.
I would agree. I do. I mean, I see it from both sides as far as economics driving, the need for a nuclear family in certain times. But at the same time, just like I said, piggybacking off of what they already said, and like I was saying before, you don't have to, in today's day and age, a lot of women are, they're financially stable and they don't have to have a man to support them. And I feel like there's much more independence, obviously, now than there was back in the day. And our ideals are changing. So, it was, when we were growing up and even before, it was normal and for women to be married. Not everyone needs to be married now. And it's not a requirement. It's not, and people don't feel that way either. So, a lot of independence and just the fact that women are able to make as much money as men do. In certain realms. Obviously we have a gender pay gap, but you can make money and support yourself and the family that you want on your own without a partner if you want to. And, we've come so far as like technology and the types of jobs that women can have now. It's just made it a lot easier to be free.
Greg, and then we'll go to the thank you. Greg, and then we'll go to the internets, see what they had to say. Go ahead.
Economically, it would make sense for couples to be together more so combine that money and make something happen. However, based on the advancement of women in this country, especially Black women, highest the demographic that has the most college degrees and everything else, they have all the options now, or at least more options. I can't say all the options. They have more options now where they can thrive on their own. It really is an independent culture that women have developed here, especially, like I say, especially Black women being the most educated in this country per capita. So with all that, there's a freedom to have the right to do whatever you want. Like most of these things don't work out. Most people don't end up together just because there's a lot of bad matches out here because people aren't on the same page and there's not a team effort anymore. Like people get together, have their own ideals, and those ideals don't combine to become one mastermind to make a team thing go. So now everyone has their enough money, or everybody's able to get enough money to be independent, and raising children on their own is not really a big deal especially if you have enough money for childcare and everything else in your back pocket. As far as that's as far as women go. Women have the freedom to make these things happen now. Men, we'll be there if we can be there, I guess. But for the most part, a lot of us are. We
That's our show today, folks. We like to thank everybody for tuning in. No.
We'll be there if that's what it's going to be. But if it's not going to be that, then most of the time with Black men, they're still there for their children. So it's not really a huge. It's not really like the kids completely missing out on a two-parent development. Two-parent experience coming up. So it's more so that there's enough money where if it doesn't work out, people can be like, I don't have to put up with this and roll. Or they can just financially take care of themselves and take care of their child. And more than likely with most Black men, at least statistically, more than likely, Black men will be there to still be there for the child, pick up on the slack with that if possible. So there's this, it's not even a matter of being married or not and all these other things. It's more of a matter of freedom. And if two people are together and they have a child, they don't have the same goals and not reaching for the same things, more than likely you're going to end up with a single parent situation. So it's a matter of freedom and choice at this point. Financials will take care of themselves.
Yeah, I was just going to jump
for
in
a lot of
quick.
people.
think that's what's changed overall is the fact that women now are being able to explore their options. Most of the time, men have always exercised their options, right? But now women are for the first time saying, you know what, I can make this amount of money. And if I want to, if I decide to be with Greg, I can do that, right? If I want to get a kid on my own and do that or whatever, that's what they'll do. It's just, it's changing. And I think the more that people get a chance to see how this works out for other people, because sometimes, ready or not, people learn from others more than themselves a lot of times. So they'll say, oh, this person is able to do that. Maybe I'll try that route. That's kind of what I wanted to do. But they didn't, put it all together. So I think it's exploring the options versus where we are as a society. And I think that now people aren't attaching their future to somebody else. They're attaching it to your point, Greg, their personal ideals. Sorry,
Yeah.
Arch.
No, you're good, man. This is fantastic.
I said, when it comes to all these things, personal ideals have to match up. That's all I'm saying. In order for both to thrive together. And if you're gonna have the same ideals and goals, then what's the point of being together? You're still gonna raise the kid.
Speaking of raising, actually, this is a terrible transition. Guy on the couch, what do you have?
All right, question number 1. Are single parent homes the new normal in the Black community? Antonio says, I think single parent homes are just as common as they've always been. It seems to be more perception than reality. Like Black men don't raise their children or go to college, or Black women are all gold diggers and have a weave. Overall, I feel the Black family is as much a mixed bag as Black folks are. Back to you.
All right, guys, let's close out this first question. Any comments on Antonio's quick comment on the first question? Going once.
Pretty much summed up what we said, though.
Okay, well, fine then, whatever. With that being said, I would like to lead you guys to the website, which is www.blackadvancement.com, where you can do a lot of different things there, such as join us on our research page, where we put in articles and different things. So that way, when you come to a debate or something like that, or one of our roundtables, you'll feel a little bit more adequate as far as your information goes. You can also go to the topics page, where anybody can put forth the topic, whether it gets through or not. It's another topic altogether, but you can put forth it and participate along with us. There's a lot of our future topics also on that page as well. Our events page, which basically says when some of our shows and events are happening, where we're going to be, what we've done in the past, so on and so forth. And last but not least, our in history page, where we go over little known facts in history. We're hoping to get more entries into that this year. But with all that being said, we'll go on to question number 2, which is it wrong to correct someone else's child? This is a question, of course, that originated for anybody who's in the Black community, whoever was whipped going down the street by a neighbor and then whipped again at home after their parents got the phone call. I will start this one with, Shanice, how about that? Shanice, is it wrong to correct someone else's kids? As a teacher, you should tread carefully.
Well, I correct people's children all the time, but as an educator, but in public, I tend not to, because you never know, people are crazy these days. So I tend not to. I tend also not to judge other parents too. I learned that from experience, because you never know what someone's going through. So I don't judge people's parenting in public, because it can be hard to parent in public. Yeah, so in the classroom, I correct people's children all the time. That's what I've seen to be doing that a lot, especially after the pandemic. But as a person out in the public, unless I know that, like if it's one of my students and I feel I have a good enough relationship with that parent to say, you know better than that, I seen you act better, you need to do it, then I'll do it. I feel like that comes with relationship nowadays. And since the Black community, it doesn't thrive on relationships anymore, we seem to be more separate. I don't feel like it will be in your best for your safety to correct someone else's child in public, just because of how the relationship, because you don't know that person and you don't know exactly what they would do or say in those situations. But I do miss the idea of that community. Like it takes a village, like you started off, it takes a village to raise a child. And I think that's missing within our communities. because we're so separate, we're so independent, and we're also integrated. That was occurred a lot through segregation, and when we had our own Black neighborhoods, and we can see JoJo down the street. And JoJo is also sorry. I also see JoJo at Sunday school. I have a relationship with his mom. I have a relationship with his dad. So I can say, hey, I can care for that child like they're my own, and say, hey, you need to get yourself together. Even though there's a lot of older people that still do that. They see someone with their pants down. Boy, pull up your pants. They feel, they can do that because that's their generation. But within our generation, I would say that, yeah, I'll just reiterate my fact. It could be dangerous.
Antoine.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with everything she said. I was confronted with this scenario actually Friday. It was yesterday. I remember Friday is yesterday.
That soon.
Yeah. At a playground. We're outside of the playground with our daughter, and like two of these kids were out of control, like throwing water everywhere and like running. They were really too big to be there. And so I saw the father because he's just watching this kid go wild, but he's not saying anything. And so these kids were way too big to be at the playground with the size of kids like my kid. And so I just kind of stopped them and said, hey, man, slow down. Like, you're going to hurt somebody. And so his dad's looking, and I look at him, because if he knocks over my daughter, now we have a problem, because you're not controlling your child. And to her point about not judging them publicly, I have to get better about that, because sometimes I look at the parents and say, what are you doing? Like, how can you watch your kids sit here and be really reckless, right? In a space where they shouldn't be that reckless. Kids are going to be kids, right? But to a degree, you can tell somebody who has like home training, or their parent has actually done some hands-on parenting with them when they get out in public and start acting a certain way. So a lot of times I have to exercise a lot of restraint not to say something, because my first goal is to try to de-escalate the situation. I know that kids are going to make mistakes just like adults do, right? But there's certain lines that I feel like, if a kid is being a habitual line stepper, and I know if I wasn't there, their kid might do something, I feel some kind of way about that, because as a parent, I wouldn't let my daughter bully another kid, or just be reckless, or do something to go sling water in a kid's face, or hit a random kid with a bottle. Like, there's just things that happen. Birthday parties are another scenario where these things happen at, and like seeing the lack of hands-on activity from a parent. You ain't got to chastise your kid per se. I don't tell anybody how to handle their business, but you got to do something. I don't want to say something to your child, but if need be, I will within reason. So, I mean, I just think it's a slippery slope, and you have to look at it from a perspective of, if I don't know, it's easier if you know the person, right? Again, to her point, but if you don't know the person and you don't know anything about them, but we all know right from wrong, I think you just have to be able to, be very measured in your response, in your words, to kind of make sure that, look, at the end of the day, for everybody's safety involved, handle accordingly there. But I'm not afraid to speak up in that regard. And I've done it, and sometimes it goes over well. And people are like, oh my gosh, yeah, I know better, and parents will cop pleasing. And sometimes, like the little dude yesterday, he's looking, and I'm just like, there's not that big of a deal. Your kid can be wrong, just as you're wrong sitting there watching it. But like, this could have been avoided.
Wow, that's Friday, huh? Anyway,
it took me a minute to realize that. Wait,
I agree with Antoine. In situations where it is putting your child in danger, then yeah, you need to say something.
Yeah, I mean, this kid was way too big. Like, he was at least 10 years old. This was a playground with 5 and 6 year olds, who are having regular mindless fun together. And your big overgrown kid is out here running through them like Emmett Smith. Like, slow down, you can't do that.
What if you found out he was 6?
Because this is a family show, I'm not gonna say what I want to say. But yeah.
It's a family show. Hey, Tim, you know what? Tim, let's go. Tim, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll ask the question. Is it wrong to correct someone else's kids?
Wrong? Maybe it's wrong. Like we were saying, we don't have the same sense of community that we've had in the past. So, my kids don't really know any of my neighbors. Not really by name or anything like that. And if one of my neighbors said something to one of my kids that was not in the best interest of, their safety or something, like I would have a problem with that. And it's probably because I don't have like a strong relationship with them. Like I correct people's children all the time, and maybe, I'm wrong, but I'm not necessarily like, um, being mean about it or anything like that. I am known to wag a finger at kids at the playground, because they're ridiculous. I have a special needs child, and both of my kids are really small. So they're often like getting run over at the playground and things like that. And people don't understand, and kids in general don't necessarily understand. My younger son has Down syndrome, and he doesn't necessarily know all the rules and all the etiquette of the playground all the time. And, he's learning how to take turns and be nice and stuff like that. And, I correct him all the time about, playing too rough or, certain things like that. But when I see another kid doing something to my kid or, bowling over or just, doing anything, saying anything, talking crazy, like making fun of, him or something like that. Usually my older son will step in and say something if somebody's making fun of him or something like that. But I'm often, you know, I'm just caught at a loss for words just because kids are terrible and horrible and so mean. But at the same time, I'm like,
That's our show, folks. We
where
like
is
to
your
thank everybody
mother?
for tuning in. We like to thank everyone for watching. Catch us more
I mean,
on
kids are great.
our
We love children. Children are awesome. But sometimes, I mean, I'm like, where is your mother?
Let's just move
Where
on.
is your father? Where is your parent? Your babysitter? I need to know because I
Right,
want
that's
to talk
right,
to them.
though.
Don't agree, Antoine. Don't agree. She's wrong. Look,
No, but
I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
Sometimes I do want to know, like, where's your mom? Like, point them out to me. I need to talk to them. Or, at birthday parties and things like that. Like, I'll ask a parent, can you get your kid? Because, I don't want to fight your kid, but I mean.
right. Yo, I have to say this, right? So, like, my daughter was in daycare a few years ago, right? Before she started real school. And one of the scenarios top 5 toughest moments in my life, right? Seriously, I was there dropping her off, getting ready to head to work and everything. I'm watching her. We're going to do our thing and say goodbye. This other little kid walks up. Parent had just dropped her off. Walks up, immediately smacks my kid in the face. Hard smack. My kid is confused and like, whoa, what's going on? Before I knew it, I lost it because I can't tell you my real thoughts on what I wanted to do. But I turned to the parent, like, between you and the person there watching this administrating it, somebody better do something like now. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing at home that your kid gets in? And now we know kids go crazy over toys and all the other kind of stuff. But when you see your kid, and I think everybody here has kids, you know your kid, right? Better than anybody else. And if you see your kid get hit, right? And you see the other parent there, and the other parent's just kind of like, oh, well, it's not about to be a oh, well moment for you. Either they're going to do something or I'm going to do something. And obviously, I'm not going to do something to the kid. So it's in your best interest to reprimand your kid at that point, And, thank goodness they saw how I reacted. And, the administrator kind of jumped in and took care of the situation. It took me a minute, but I calmed down and let them, do their job as teachers at the daycare and all that sort of thing. But walking out to the car, I was kind of waiting on that parent to come out. Then he didn't want to come out. Like, come outside. I want to talk to you about this. Like,
not waiting outside the daycare.
It was bad. It was bad because at that point I was almost shaking. Like, wait a minute. Like, the kid just walks up. Like, had he said something, it would have been cool. And not cool because your kid hit my kid. Like, it would have been cool. Okay, you handled it right then and there, but you just kind of like, it's another day. I question, what are you doing at home? What happened? Your kid should be happy getting dropped. Give me something. And so I think it's tough. There's so many scenarios that pop up with kids where, I'm rarely ever blaming a kid, especially around these ages, elementary school ages, I'll say. But it's just like the parent themselves. I'm like, where's your parenting skills at? That if you just are letting things ride. If you're just okay with your kid, behaving however, I just feel like that says a lot more about you, and you're worthy of whatever comes to you at that point, because it's just, you can't do that. That's not the way the world works. And the longer you do that, I've never taught anybody in terms of actually teaching, but I do a lot of mentorship. I see a lot of kids grow up to be young adults, and young adults, when you start talking to them about their personal issues and they take you back through their childhood and how they were raised and what was lacking from them or what have you, and whatever they grew up with, you're like, man, a lot of this could have been stopped at an early age. Had somebody just, I think Shanice's point about talking to them and telling them they could do better or whatever, that sort of thing. Kids embrace feedback a lot better than adults do. And so if you kind of early on talk to them about, different scenarios and coach them through what's right, what's wrong, why you shouldn't approach it this way. And that's before you get into anybody having like a neurodivergency or anything like that. It's tough,
Right.
I try to be mindful of kids that, have special needs, like my own son. I'm always on alert. I'm on high alert for kids that, the reason why you were pushing my son, or, okay, so I can tell that, there's something going on there or something like that. But I want to ask the parent, I'm like, listen, I mean, do you want me to say something, or do you want to handle that on your own? Because, if he hurts my child, or he has hurt my child or something of that nature, then I'm going to have something to say. So
Yeah.
And
be
like
prepared.
working in the school system, we do see a lot of kids that do have special needs. They do have the lash out where they do tend to, not intentionally, but they do sometimes, they get upset, or they like, we have kids that are nonverbal, and so their way of communicating may be through their hands. And so in those situations, it's a lot, is we, even though they'll get a like referral write up just like any other kid, but to have that understanding, he didn't hit Johnny because of, he was mad at Johnny. He's hit Johnny because he's frustrated with something that he can't communicate. So so I do agree to that point. Like if a kid with special needs is hitting and acting out, and a lot of time the parents are at loss because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to control the outburst, and I don't know like to what extent can they control the outburst and let without, I don't know. I'm not sure because I'm not sure because our children are not in a situation where I can say, well, as a parent, and I know my child has these selective outbursts, what I would do to control it, because I don't understand. I'm not sure what they can understand as being, So I think a lot with those kids, their parents are a little bit kind of like intimidated, not understanding like, well, what should I do? My child doesn't have the capacity of saying this is totally wrong and this is totally right. And they're doing it out of frustration. And then we're seeing a lot more cases of this, like at least within the school system, we're seeing a lot more cases where kids have these extreme behaviors. And then we're doing all we can in the classroom to manage it. We do an effective job, but that doesn't mean that like we don't get hurt in the process. Like us IAs don't get hurt in the process, and we just do what we can. So as a parent to a child that does have like outbursts, this is all totally off subject. So, but as a parent to a kid that has the outburst, I'm not sure how they would manage that per se.
Well, hard pivot, but Greg, your thoughts.
I'm just gonna keep this real short and sweet because y'all went on about, personal stories about possibly choking people in the parking lots of daycares and all these other things. So
show, Greg, don't talk like that. What are you doing?
No, I'm just gonna say, well, we all know that the days of drive-by ass whippings are over. Like you just can't beat nobody's kid that you don't know, just roll up on them like, what are you doing? And so those days are over. Generally, the way that I used to do it when my kids were super young, if there was some craziness going on at the park with somebody's kid, I'll just simply ask, whose kid is this? And if somebody says mine, then we'll have a discussion. If nothing happens after that, then I give my kids permission to beat the hell out of said kid that's messing with them. Plain and simple. Now, they should have corrected it before. So now my kid is going to have to beat your kid. And if you come over there, everybody going to the ER. So that's just what it is.
That's not the way.
That's what it is. I gave you a shot to take your kid and discipline your kid correctly. Since that didn't happen, I've given my kid permission to lay hands on your child because you didn't correct it.
Harder
That was the other way. Go ahead.
Harder pivot. Let's go to the website and see what.
I'm not even finished my point yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Move on.
No. Go ahead. You can finish. I'll let you finish. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
No, but if you have a relationship with another kid's parent, and it's a close relationship. We all have other parents that we're good with, and their kids come over all the time, and our kids go to their place and everything else. Those kids, I feel like you can discipline to a degree. And by a degree, I mean have a sit-down talk with them and then tell the parents that you had a conversation with said kid.
Yeah.
That's how that goes. I think the disciplining other people's children depends on your relationship with that parent. If you guys have the relationship where this kid is basically your nephew, your niece, like you're almost raising the kid because he's at the house every day, eating up all the snack packs and such. I feel like you can be able to talk to that kid and the parent be fine with it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you, at that point, you and the parent have got to have at least some kind of relationship, enough of a relationship for an understanding that you have a little bit of say so what this kid does in your presence, because ultimately, a lot of the times when you would have to do these things, this kid is at, you're the one that's the caretaker for the kid at that time. So in those kind of cases, yeah, you have to be able to discipline that kid. But for random kids, you just can't go handling random children at a park. You should talk to their parents. And if their parents don't do anything about it, well, then everything after that to me is fair game. But
that's what I'm saying. Like if I'm out and like I've been in a scenario where my kid is in the wrong, right?
That's why you're the angriest man I know.
I'm not nowhere near. So much more calm in real life, people. Listen, no. I talked to her. I let her know, look, that was wrong, etc. Apologize and we move on with it. But there are so many parents I feel like who are unwilling to just talk to their kid. Like it's an easy thing to do. I don't know.
I just want to know, like, how gentle are we going to be? Like, I'm trying to be a gentle parent. I don't really I don't spank my kids anymore. One, I told you, like, I have a child that has special needs and I can't be sure of how much he understands all the time. So that doesn't seem quite fair. And my other child used to get a spanking every now and again, but did not respond to that type of discipline. So I was like, oh, so we're just going to take things away from you because this is all you care about. I mean, literally, he was not responding. So I was like, okay, I'm really trying to be like not who I was meant to be, which is an ass beater. But
family show, Timba. Family show.
I'm sorry.
What are you doing?
Like I grew up being spanked, so and we're calling it spanked. That's a nice word, spanked. Yeah, I grew up,
there will be no
trouble like that, and so it was very, that is in me. You know what I'm saying? Like the way that I would respond to, someone misbehaving and things like that. Like my first inclination used to be like, oh, so you want to pop? I mean, that's obviously like, what are you talking about? I'm gonna pop you. But obviously that just didn't work out. Like these kids are not the same. They don't get it. Like they're like, oh, I mean, I'm gonna laugh at you or something like that just makes you madder. So I'm like, obviously I need to change my behavior and the way that I'm looking at things, my perspective. I need to be more gentle and things like that. We're gonna talk more and all of these other things. And sometimes I'm just asking myself, like, how gentle are we gonna be? Like I've seen people at the playground and they don't discipline their kids. They feel like, oh, they're outside, so they'll work it out or something of that nature. But I'm like, listen, if your kids being a bully, I'm gonna need you to say something, because I'm gonna say something if he hurts my child or something of that nature. I have boys, and people, have this mentality of like, let boys be tough and like let them work it out, and like they fight. And yeah, no, my kids are soft. So they want a soft life. They're not interested in fighting. They want everyone to be nice, and I'm trying to teach them that that's, kids that are bullies and things, sometimes their parents aren't that great. Like they're not,
Well, I suggest you go the alternate route then. You tell said kid out there, whatever you do to my child, I'm gonna do to your mother as soon as she gets here.
Oh wow.
That's a good cue to go to the website. Guy on the couch,
Moving on.
Get us out of this, guy on the couch.
All right, question number 2. Is it wrong to correct someone else's child?
Going off the
Rebecca
rails.
says, personally, I believe it's okay to correct someone's child, but only inside of certain boundaries. I think if you see a child misbehaving in public and you do not know them, then a look of disapproval helps the child understand that their behavior is unacceptable, and especially that it affects people around them. It helps them be aware of how they are viewed by others. If I'm personally left in charge of a child, then I'm assuming I have complete disciplinary control over them. And if that child does not listen, I won't hesitate to pop or pluck a child to show them that they are wrong. Back to you.
Let's go ahead and react to the comment on the website from the guy. Thanks for reading that, guy.
Well, it's a little too far the laying of the hands.
What happened there? Why do you think that? Why do you think it's a little too? Why everyone's shaking their?
Yeah,
there's no popping and plucking. Like you
can't.
You're not gonna get away. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. You call me, I'll take care of it. But as far as like I said, this ain't back in the day. Like I said, we grew up on drive-by ass whippings. Like I've gotten my ass whipped by people I've never met before. So in church. So like those days are over. Like you can't just do that. And plus there's cameras.
I mean, if you want to go to jail,
it's technically illegal to even hit or touch a kid at this, even for their parents. They can't really do too much to a child. I've
always found that very weird that it was okay to beat children, because you can't beat anyone else without there being some real consequences as an adult.
Yeah.
Like if I walk up and just slap somebody, I'm going to jail. But I can beat a kid in Walmart and they were like, serves them right. Like it's just a weird rule to have.
I think the reason why that's in place is because we can all agree children are horrible. Can we just go on?
Fair enough.
What was that like? What happened there? What happened there? Nobody? Okay. No. But seriously, is that all the comments in response to what the guy had read off? Or go ahead, Antoine.
I got a random question. If any of you saw somebody, let's say you was at, I don't know, Target, right? And you just out by yourself, you don't have your kids with you, but you see somebody like yoking their kid up and like literally beating them. Would you say something?
The first thing I would think, honestly, is what did that kid do?
Mm-hmm.
That's not I'm not joking. Like I said, I don't judge you, but honestly, the first, because look, you don't make it that far in life and have a job and a child and all that stuff being unreasonable for the most part. You don't make it that far. Well, so for you to do that in Target.
People pretend a lot.
Tim, this was not Walmart. This was Target we're talking about.
True. Let's get a little more classy. I got it.
Keep it classy. All right, let's keep it classy. I mean,
keep it classy.
Wakanda toy section. And let's talk about it. Huh?
It depends on how young.
Yeah, that's how.
When I see people yoking up and beating little like toddlers and things, I'm like, do you have
the 1.5-year-old?
Self-control. That's a baby. Like, let's not. Should you do that? Because I mean, I might not say anything, but I just feel like you're on your way to being on the news. Someone is going to say something. Someone's going to call the police.
Yeah.
Somebody who is like, an advocate of the most gentle parenting techniques or something is going to be like completely appalled and up in arms. Especially, and maybe it depends on where it is. And
they're gonna record it all on their phone too.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, and once it's recorded, like you're done. Like
It's just to me.
CPS is coming for you.
To me, it depends on the age of not the person being beat, but the person doing the beating.
Mm.
Like if it's like someone like old, like my like grandma, I just know that that's what they do. like if somebody's 70 plus and they're spanking somebody who's like 5, I was like, oh, grandma's watching somebody. That's just, this was planned. They knew this was going to happen.
So are you giving get out of jail free cards for everyone 60 something and up? Like who's doing
Senior
that?
citizen get out of jail free card.
That's how they.
I mean,
they've been beating people their whole life.
But I know, what I'm saying is I know what that is. I know what that is. And I'm just like, oh, that old lady has had enough. That's just what it is.
I legitimately look at that scenario every time and be like, what did that little child do to make this person act like this?
Well, like I said, that's why I look at the age, because I know when it's a grandma, it don't take much.
I'm just saying.
It don't take much for a grandma to pop you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You've also
seen a lot of bad parents out there, frankly.
Antoine, your scenario is great, but you've also seen the reverse scenario where the kid is wilding out.
Yeah, I know.
You're
so
like,
it was a real
need to yoke that
scenario.
kid up. You know what I mean?
It was during Christmas, right? And this is like 6 years ago. My daughter wasn't even born yet. And so like I'm in Target, I'm shopping, and like this little kid was asking for whatever toy or whatever. It was clearly around 2 years, 3, not it, but she was around 2 or 3 years old. And like the mom just spazzed on her. I'm talking about like yoked her like in a way like she was yoking another grown woman and got in the face and all this stuff. And I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what would I say. It's not my kid, right? I could see the kid was begging for a toy or what have you, but I just didn't feel like it was right. So instead of saying something like verbally, I just kind of stayed on the aisle to like, hope that my presence would kind of negate it, but it didn't work. Like mom was like this second from like probably if I wasn't there, I feel like she might have picked the kid up and like did something else. It was just like wild. And it's like when you see those scenarios where I think it's hard for me to say bad parenting because to your point, what did the kid do? But when you see at least from face value, what I saw that the kid was just being a kid.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard.
It's a slippery slope because what if that kid ends up on the news? Like you see all these stories.
What can a 2 or 3-year-old do to get yoked up and smacked around? I don't care what they did, how many questions they asked, what they asked for. Like, what did she do? Like, I can't imagine what.
I think of a couple things.
What would warrant that kind of behavior?
I can see it. It was like unsafe, like they were about to run in front of somebody's car, and then she did this, to get her or him or her out of the way. But
so we're not talking about like a normal, regular ass whipping. We're talking about like someone getting yoked up for real.
Yeah. It was a real yoking up for somebody that was way too little for that. Over asking about a toy.
Yeah, you got to tell them to chill.
It's tough.
I mean, what if you saw somebody getting beat with a belt, a 2 or 3-year-old getting beat with a belt in the store?
Yeah, you got to tell them to chill.
Those are things like, what can a 2 or 3-year-old? I mean, how did they ruin your day? Like. That's bad parenting.
I don't think
that is bad parenting.
Ruin your day is too much of a hyperbole. To be honest.
I mean, it happens, but like that's when you the parent needs to just walk away.
Yeah,
definitely.
Walk away from those people. Those small people, you can leave them. You can walk away.
Yeah. If you see it to that degree, you got to tell them to chill out. At the very least, you don't got to be like you can even if it's somebody who's kind of like wild brolic and everything, you can even make it seem like you're trying to help look out for them.
Right.
You got to intervene at some point. Yeah. You're like, dude, you're gonna go to jail. Chill. No,
right. Do you want to be on the news?
Yeah. So, but at that point, you got to step in. You just can't let someone get choke slammed on aisle 3.
And that's the baby. Like.
Yeah.
That's what I looked at too, and I felt bad because I felt like I should have said something, but. It's hard when you deal with parenting to know, okay, I know I wouldn't do that and I haven't done that, but do I say something, right? And if I say something, how far can this potentially go? And I'm thinking for today because people are nuts today. Like
they are.
It's wild. Like you could literally be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. And then next thing you know, you got something in your face. And I'm like, yo, wasn't asking for that, so you don't. I don't know. I just think about that because then I also think about some of the babies who end up on the news, right? And you'll be like, man, what if somebody
had stepped in? Like, what would be different?
Yeah.
Shanice, you have the closing word on this one.
I'm
if
about
anything.
to yoking or anything.
Let's continue on. I appreciate your silence on this. No,
So do you?
go
Okay,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I understand. Like if it was like for a safety reason, like I said before, and they were trying to keep the kid from getting hit by a car, that's different than trying to punish a kid like for being a kid. Um, well as teachers, we see a lot and we know a lot that goes on in a home. I'm legally obligated to report if any child says something about being abused, but there you have to, yeah, you're legally, because of who I am, I'm obligated to report if I know if that child was in my classroom. But if in the public setting, um, I would again probably give that parent a strong look, like what are you doing? And hopefully their glare will match my glare. um, and because again, like Antoine said, you never know if they're that violent with a 2-year-old. You know, what are they gonna do with me? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so you have to, yeah. So you have to kind of, or like if you can, I don't know. I don't even know what to say in that situation, because you don't really know unless you can get security over there and say, hey, I saw such and such happen down aisle, such as can you check that out? But legally, as a teacher, I'm obligated to report any abuse.
So, speaking of being able to talk through issues such as this very difficult topic, you can go to our debate section where we have other topics that we've talked through that are similar, if not the same, as this one. You could also you can find us at www.blackadvancement.com, where you can also go to our recommended websites where we promote Black-owned businesses. Today, we'd like to, I guess, highlight Soul Fire Farms. They're located up in New York, and they grow produce and things of that nature. It's pretty cool. If you get a chance to, you should check out their website. Also, we will take you also on our website to our book of the month. And the one that we were going to highlight is actually from this month, and that is called Shielded: How the Police Became Untouchable by Johanna Schwartz. And that will bring us to our third question and final question for Parenting Revisited. Do you feel that our morals have changed? And if so, for better or for worse? And for this last question, I'll start with the rookie, Timba. Timba, go ahead.
Morals. Like I said, I feel like there's a lot more gentle parenting going on right now. And that may just be based on, a lot of us, or in this generation, may have had a lot more beatings in their past. So they are trying to do something different. Because they have resentment around that, and they don't see it as all being good, or or see it as being having had been necessary. So they don't necessarily want to repeat any of those mistakes that they felt that their parents bestowed upon them. So I think there's such a push to talk more to your children, and be more understanding, be more patient, treat them more as equals and more as people, as opposed to we were supposed to be seen and not heard. There's just like such a push for children to be involved in so many aspects of life as where they weren't before.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off at all, but I just along those lines, and you can address it first, but anyone can address it. How much do you think that has to do with the idea of integration taking place? Do you think that this is something that was infiltrated? Infiltrate is probably too strong of a word, but something that was integrated into the Black community from an outside view looking in, as far as like the idea of being seen and not heard is no longer acceptable, and things of that nature? Or do you think it's just like a generational
I think a lot of it is generational, but I also see your point as where a lot of things in the Black community were probably frowned upon or something by our white counterparts as far as parenting and things, but that is just like a superiority complex anyway. You know, a lot of things that are Black are seen as bad anyway. So,
right. But I guess the reason why I'm asking that, right, is because like if you see generalizing, white people really generally don't spank their kids. Like they've done that for a while. Black people are just now starting to come around to that, and they use a lot of psychobabble to talk themselves into that. Somewhat. I don't mean to say it disrespectfully, but I mean like they say they use a lot of like, oh well, you know, we was beat as slaves. You didn't treat your kid like a slave. Blah blah blah. You know, they use some people.
I was gonna say the
I've
same.
heard this. I was
gonna say that's where that originates from.
You never heard that, Timma?
I said I've heard it all. Yes.
Okay, yeah. No, I'm just saying like people will use that. They use that to say, well, you know, you just carrying on some kind of scarring and so on and so
slave
forth.
Traditions.
Yeah. Right.
Carrying on slave traditions. No,
right.
I think
Go ahead.
It's simple. It's simply just evolution. You know, every generation takes the stuff that worked best for them and that they would have wanted as kids, and then they apply that, and then the next generation does that. And we've just made it to the point where we've decided that beatings aren't the thing to do. You know, there should be more talking and conversation, because that's what we would have wanted as children, to be talked to instead of maimed. Now,
yeah, that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean.
And I think that like our generation is embracing like therapy and all of these things a lot more. Like we see that we have trauma based, you know, from our childhoods and things like that. So as we work through that, then we're trying to, you know, all the things that we're learning in therapy, we're trying to, you know, push onto our children as well, so that they grow up and don't have these same resentments and this same anger and these, you know, these emotional setbacks that, you know, can keep people from moving forward in life in general. And so I want to have a whole person, you know, that is a functioning adult when they grow up and doesn't necessarily look back and think of their childhood as the worst thing that happened to them or anything like that.
So my counter, I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound like the person who's caping up for the old school rules, but I would have to say, I
mean, this is easy for you to say because I took half your ass whippings growing up.
That's true. At least. That's true. No, but
I got double the ass whippings for you.
But also, I feel like I saved your life. Like, you know what I mean? Like, by me letting you take those beatings, you become a better man, baby. I mean, like, that's what I'm saying. But
I just a very violent youth that used to beat up everyone.
But seriously, I think that there is validity to a lot of us turning out decently. I don't think that a lot of us are scarred mentally. I don't want to make it sound like, you know, everything they did was right, but I mean, like, I think that our generations are mentally tougher. I mean, like, it's all this gentle talk and stuff is kind of making people kind of weak. I don't know. That's just, you know, that's kind of me. I don't know.
No, it makes people more sensible and thinkers.
I just think it makes them more whole.
Shut your mouth, man. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's what it does. It makes people, like I said, when I was I mean, you can vouch for all this. When I was a kid, I was very violent. I was quick to be set off. It was nothing for me to go upside somebody's head because that's what I was getting at home.
I don't know if that's why.
I mean, it's you know? That's how things were solved.
I mean, that is.
Look, it was this simple. At home, they'd ask me not to do something. I get whooped. I'm outside the park. I ask you not to do something. You do it. You get whooped. It's just
I can vouch for that. I've seen it.
Yeah, Twan's seen it. It's just a transfer.
So you're saying that if you didn't get whooped, you would have been like, please don't step on my shoe.
I'm saying I wouldn't have been as quick to whip an ass. Like there was no questions asked.
But look at how you turned out, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Let's just be honest here.
Go ahead, Shirley, I'm sorry.
To go kind of not, because the kids, I think kids are more violent these days. And it's not, and it's a different type of violence. Like their violence, I'm going to kill, I'm going to shoot, I'm going to do that, and that has increased over the years too.
Well, that's because kids nowadays are scared to take an ass whooping.
That's what I'm saying.
But
Greg, 100%.
Point to that point too. You're talking about morals. I think.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Kids are now being raised by the internet, and our society is now anything goes. And so at 5 years old, they're watching the alphabet kill each other. Like it's weird. Like like so it's like they're being, I don't want to say brainwashed, because then I would sound like those people, like, well, like rap music is
the TV.
But that's what they're being fed. Like they're being raised by TV screens, they're being raised by YouTube, they're being raised by TikTok, they're being raised by all of this other stuff that is negated with parents are saying. So
what the kids are missing now, more so than all that, it's they just have way more access to stuff.
Yeah.
Not to be take this way off rail, but when I was in middle school, it was difficult to find porn.
Like, rail in the show.
Not now.
Rail in the show.
Yeah, so but that contributes to the loosening of the morals.
There's a whole lot more access, and that includes guns and everything else.
But that access, right?
I don't even let my kids watch the news.
Really?
Absolutely not. Because like I said, maybe I mean I don't want them knowing about who got shot, and who drove their family off a cliff, and who got was in the grocery store minding their own business and got shot. That all the people that got shot in a mass shooting or school shootings or anything like that. I mean, that is every other day on the news.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I want to terrify my child? Like,
but parents do. They do. Like the day after the 6-year-old got shot, I had a kindergarten to whisper to me, "Mrs. Goodman, come here." I'm like, "What's up?" There was a 6-year-old that shot his teacher. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's like, where did you hear that from? From the news. But there are people that are exposing their children to all of this violence, and I don't know what's going to be, it can only get worse, if they're exposed to this at 5 years old, and it could be the same thing, you play the violent video game, you learn how to shoot, blah blah blah. Just like you're doing all of this, and you're playing Grand Theft Auto, you learn how to steal cars. Doesn't mean you're going to grow up to steal cars, but this is,
that's not all necessarily true. I played Mario, I wasn't kicking turtles.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's younger. Like I think like little kids are observing this now, then they're making it into cartoons so that the kids are seeing it at a younger age. Not saying that our generation is innocent of all this stuff, but when I was 5 years old, I was not watching letter F kill all the letters of the alphabet. I was not doing that. I don't think any of you were either, but it's
well,
I don't know.
I don't know. I grew up a little.
I saw some things, but
Yeah, when we were 5, we were watching Eddie Murphy's Delirious.
Oh,
so
yes.
Yeah.
Very true.
I think if I want to watch a letter Y get stabbed, I don't know if it's as damaging as watching Eddie Murphy's Delirious. So
I think that's all about. Let me let Antoine go.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just going to chime in and say, to the point of the morals, right? So I think
that's right.
I'm 50-50 on a lot of this, because I do feel like, there's some overcompensating from some folks who were raised, and maybe they were over whooped, spanked, beaten, or what have you, right? And there's a better way to parent. And so they felt like, hey, I'm going to go this far in this direction. And sometimes that goes where they're teaching their kid to have the freedom of speech and express how they feel, which is wonderful, right? To be empathetic, but they're forgetting about you're not free from consequences with certain things. And as these kids get older and they express themselves in certain ways, because there were zero consequences in their home life, they don't know how to handle that. And that thus leads to the extra violent stuff that you see happening with some of the kids today, because they just go extreme. They go off the rails. I think that for me, I don't like the fact that there's so many folks out here that are raising their kids without helping them to understand that, look, here's what's right, right? From a common sense standpoint, we all know what common sense is. Here's what's wrong. If you cross this line and wrong, here's the potential things that could happen. Our goal is a lot of times in this generation to assign blame to a TikTok or this or that, right? But it's none of those things. If you grew up in the 80s, you saw a lot of stuff. Go back and watch some of these TV shows, cartoons, and movies and listen to things being said, right? That doesn't mean you turned out horrible, right? Because your parents parented you, right? They were more hands-on and instrumental in different ways. One could debate in terms of the effectiveness of spankings or what have you, you know, and I think that's to each their own based upon, you know, how you see fit or you and your spouse or whomever you're raising kids with, right? But for me, I think that if you're raising your kids to understand the world and how it works, if you're helping them to understand that, look, if you do this, here's the different options that can happen. It's literally like a video game. You make choices and decisions. Those decisions will have consequences, good or bad, you know, and the more that they understand, the better equipped they are to kind of step out into society. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people out here right now that are hurt. And there's a lot of people out here right now, to your point, Aj, I feel like they're soft. And I'll tell you how it was. When I was going to school, early on, before I got to college, you can make jokes with people. You could, you know, we trash talked, we have fun. We steel sharpen steel. Somewhere between college and young adulthood, it's like you can't even like be like, oh man, those shoes don't match. And like somebody, they're not taking, and I'm being real lightweight clearly, but like people, like their whole mental is done by that. They're undone. They become Remy and higher learning at that point. And you're like, man, chill, it wasn't that deep, you know, but their brain is fractured because nobody has ever told a joke about them. They've never been the butt of a joke. They've never been laughed at, laughed with, or anything. It's just this perfect utopian society of nobody can say anything to you, you know, and we're not talking about like racist or anything stupid or xenophobia or anything like that, right? We're just talking about regular, hey, day to day, this is life.
Yeah, just
banter, perfect way to put it. And so when people become mentally soft and fragile, you know, they don't know how to interact in society, you know, and I see people like that every day. And you're talking about 15, 20 years later where you're like, holy shit, like where are we going to be in a few years? Because nobody's teaching these folks that, look, in life, certain things happen. It's out of your control. Your emotions are in your control. How you react to things is in your control. To Greg's point, knowing how to take a beating. Listen, the reason people are picking up weapons and guns and doing all these things, and unfortunately to that point about the 6-year-old kid, I was shocked to hear that at that age. It's like, yeah,
that kid was a menace anyway, yo. Like if you read the whole article, that kid was a menace, yo.
He was a menace, but you're right.
The kid was horrible.
I mean,
but nobody was stepping in to course correct that action either.
But you see, this is the point that I'm making about it. That's why I'm saying ass whippings aren't necessary. Conversation is necessary.
Yes,
you have to build you. For one, you're gonna want your kids to want to talk to you. That's one. So if all you got for them is ass whippings when they got bad news, then that's not all. You know, why would I come to you and get beat? You know what I'm saying? So there has to be some kind of conversations and learn how to teach them how to think through things and build a moral and logical standpoint of things. That's what needs to actually happen, because all those other things, they aren't going to necessarily help you. So the conversation is it's what should happen rather than beatings.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when my daughter was younger, they do these little pop-ins and little spankings and stuff, and it's like, I'm already heavy-handed, so I do it lightweight. But it wasn't making progress. She was like, what are you going to do? You're going to spank me, daddy? And I'm like, after she does something wrong that she knew was wrong. And so I had to pivot how I handle those scenarios and be like, look, okay, let's talk about it. Why did you do this? You realize you're dealing with a whole person. No matter how small they are, they're exploring things for the first time. And so when you're talking about parenting and you're talking about being able to help your little one evolve into the best level of themselves, I just feel like empathy and understanding and leading with that, it goes a long way. They will then understand that, look, you know, there's some banter and things I have to be a part of, because sometimes your kid might come home and their feelings are hurt about something, or you might say something that hurts their feelings, but you have to create a safe space for them to be able to articulate that.
No,
Yeah,
you're exactly
you're
right.
right about that whole.
Everybody can't be right all the time.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying? Like and that's the way that I feel like a lot of the new age stuff, including some of the parenting lanes, have been kind of trending towards. It's like, well, whatever you do isn't wrong, it's just different. And it's like, no, things that are just
but
wrong.
maybe that's one of the trends. But what I'm saying is, with the conversations, not only were you going to tell them they're wrong, they figure out why you're wrong and how to fix it. These are the things that need to happen. Now, I'm not saying you should just be like, well, sometimes you hit people with hammers and because you're different. That's crazy talk. You know what I'm saying? What you have to explain is you have to explain all the things, the scenarios of what could happen, what actually happened. Why do you feel this way? And why did you think it was okay for you to do this?
Yeah.
You explain those to me and I can tell you where you're wrong. Or I can tell you where you're right.
I will say, I'll say this. There was and I won't say their name. There was a pastor / reverend that I have high regard for, who told me, I forgot how we got on this subject, but he was saying when he would spank his kids, he wouldn't just spank them and not say something. You know what I mean? He would spank them. He would explain why he's spanking them and what they did wrong first. And then he'd be like, so they would understand why the spanking happened. And then they would go in from there. And it just, I get it. I understand.
See, but this is the difference. Well, maybe it's just me. But after you whip my ass, I don't want to hear what
it was before. He did it prior. I will say he did it prior. He did it prior. I'll say that.
Don't whip my ass, but like, now understand it here. This is why.
Man.
You could have started there.
Hey, no, I said that he said he would say it before. He would explain it before what was going on.
Well, at that point, I've got it. There's no need for physical harm, sir.
Well, boys will be boys. I'm just playing. No, but let's. You know what? We're running out of time. Let's go to the website so he can possibly get us back to the original question that we were supposed to address on this one. Guy on the couch, what you got?
All right, question number 3. Do you feel that our morals have changed? And if so, for better or worse? Ricky T says our morals have changed for sure, and often for the worse. Social networking and the ease of communication are great when placed, but the devil when abused, right? Our kids all have cell phones and Facebook accounts far too early for our liking. And the unfortunate truth is that they, if they want one, they can go and do it secretly. At least with TV, you have an idea for what is out there. The advances in technology have had a huge impact on our moral code, what is appropriate, etc. Also, since physical punishment is nearly extinct, we've been forced to address more serious issues with less serious punishments. Back to you.
Wow, that one kind of sneaks right into the middle of the conversation that we've had. Anybody have a reaction to Ricky T's comments from the website?
Yeah, I think social media has been great and bad, right, at the same time. So great for opening up lines of communication, bad for hindering how people communicate in real life. Like sometimes it's made people comfortable, again, not being able to have a true discourse about something. Like you can literally have variant opinions, and it's okay on certain things, right? As it pertains to raising kids and helping them to understand the ways of the world, I think people have to be more grounded in reality with that. And some people's version of parenting is, hey, here's their cell phone, take it, go play in the corner, little Johnny, and they go about their day, and so little Johnny goes to YouTube and watches Alphabet kill each other and do all these other things. And so it's like, that's what they know. They don't have the human touch. That human element has to be there and infused in that person's life, that person, little boy, little girl, what have you, and help them to understand what they're feeling, because you as the adult, the parent, right, or the guardian or whatever in their life, it's kind of your job to help guide them, right? It's not your job to make decisions for them, but help them to understand the decisions that they're going to make or potentially make, right? And again, the outcomes potentially of all of those areas there. So I do think that the additions of technology, while a great enhancement to our lives, people lean on it too much. I think if you lead with yourself first, those things become a fantastic addition to any parenting or relationship building that you're doing as a guardian.
Fair enough. Anyone else?
I agree. I definitely agree. And then, as like I keep saying, as we get to see the after effect, teachers get to see the after effect of everybody's parenting, because we're dealing with 26 different personalities, 25 however large our class sizes are, and we see the effects of the internet. We see the effects of social media. We see the effects of cyberbullying. Whereas parents, their kids, because they're not in the social situations with their kids, and the kids will only put on a face for them. We see the trueness of what they become because of all of this. So I can personally say I'm seeing a lot of different issues with coping. A lot of not understanding where, like, if I do not get a turn, or if I lose in a game, or if I'm not this person and that person, we have explosive temper tantrums. We have students that will, destroy a classroom over someone telling them, no, you cannot, no, or someone trying, well, this has happened to one of my teen teachers. She told she told the child that the child just wants to help you, but the child got so emotionally upset because she didn't want help, and just destroyed the teacher's classroom and started hitting the teacher. And I'm not sure if this is, yeah.
Are you teaching at Abed Elementary? What the hell is going on?
No, this is across this right now. This is very common across the United States.
Yeah.
Is it?
This is something that we noticed specifically after the pandemic hit, because the screens were in charge. Parents were working. So we're dealing with a younger generation that has no idea how to understand problem solve, or how to interact with other people, and what to do if they face a problem and a dilemma. And so that's where I'm like, at this point, because I've taught for a little bit, this is the first time that I taught, and I'm like, these kids have changed, and we noted the changes. And I'm honestly right now, I'm like, I'm blaming the pandemic and the lack of the lack of relationship building with the parents, because parents aren't parenting anymore. They're not. The screen, as soon as they get home, what did you do when you get home? Oh, I played a video game. Oh, I watched YouTube. We ask them these questions. They are not parenting. They are leaving the screens to parent. And when we get the screens to parent, you are experiencing some sort of withdrawal from the screen, just like you're withdrawing from a drug. The kids are so addicted to these screens. We are seeing just as if they're addicted to drugs, like they're going through some sort of withdrawal.
It's these gangster videos.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that. And I know this sounds like very, very old school, but
I know what you mean.
We are seeing the feedback of neglected parent. You're not having that. Your screen is your parent right now, and that's what we're seeing.
I mean,
and it's not in every kid, but it's in enough kids where it's set up off a classroom. Even if it's like 2 or 3 kids, 2 or 3 kids are having these explosive temper tantrums because they are not getting what they want. And that's going on through 1st grade through 5th grade. It's not just, it's just not the little kids. It's
no matter what, these kids would be the same, because it's not like we had our parents completely. We were latchkey kids.
But you had social interaction. They don't have. They don't have social interaction. They're not interacting with their peers. They're not interacting with their parents. They're interacting with the screen, and they're interacting with these internet personalities who's telling them to be this and telling them to be that. That's
where it gets tough for me.
That's
but I get
where
it. You're not wrong.
And
Greg,
you're not. Greg, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying the
I'm
difference
just,
is
I mean, I see what
we
you're saying, but
interacted with other people.
it's kind of the same way that we grew up, but different. Like we were basically raised by television. You know, I was raised by a sexually harassing skunk. I mean, it just
Pepe Le Pew.
once you hit a certain age, you start to
I was like, what are you talking
start to
about?
get over things.
Stinkor was only on He-Man every once in a while.
But it wasn't as overt, you know, like that. No one is saying, "Oh, this is a sexually harassing skunk." Nowadays, they're saying, "Yeah, this skunk is sexually harassing it. Let's make fun of this."
That's the point.
Yeah, like that's what they'll do that nowadays. But it was we didn't know that was sexual harassment.
Sure didn't. Got all my game from Pepe. This is what
What I'm saying is, it's one of those things where I think what you're dealing with is the more of the age category.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think that's true.
It is through. I work with other teachers, so we.
I don't think you got middle schoolers running up, beating up teachers, but or high schoolers either. But
they're destroying bathrooms because of TikTok. They're doing a lot of stuff in the schools because
you're talking about the stupid challenges,
and all that stuff.
Okay, fair enough.
Go up and smack your teacher, like they were doing, like in CJ, there was like all kinds of stuff going on. That was a challenge. Hit your teacher, like, you know what?
I think that's ridiculous. Just because of time, we can talk about the rest of this offline. We can have talk about this challenge.
I'm sorry to derail, but this
no. You did not derail. You did not derail at all. It's not that at all. It's more so just a lack of time. I want to thank everybody for coming out, man. Let me just plug the website one last time, which is www.blackadvancement.com, where you can see other crazy and cool shows. We have great conversations like The Female Voice, Hollywood Zoomcast, Noxus Synopsis, Beautiful Struggle, and more. You can also go to our donations page. We are a nonprofit after all. I mean, come on, give a little. Anyway, so but on there you can also see how we spend our money as well as how we receive our money. So nothing to hide there. We also have a Black People You Should Know segment. Absalom Boston is one Black person you should know. If you never heard of him, you might want to figure out who this first Black U.S. Mariner was, who helped integrate schools in Nantucket in like the 1800s. And last but not least, we are a nonprofit that does things off of action as opposed to just dialogue. So you can go to our solutions section to see what we're doing. Currently, we are involved with a couple other organizations trying to get things off the ground, such as food insecurity programs and things of that nature, local political awareness, all that good stuff. So anyway, that's our show. Thanks for watching. You can follow us on Facebook at The Black Advancement, on Twitter at BLK Advancement, or on IG at The Black Advancement, or our website, which is www.blackadvancement.com. But until the next time, Black people, advance. Peace.